Shalom.
Shalom.
Happy Sabbath. And happy New Year, everybody.
Yeah. New Year is approaching.
This
Real
is
New Year. Yes, sir. Looking forward
this
to
is the
Passover.
Today is New Year's. Next week is Passover, brothers and sisters, so prepare.
Yes.
So on this occasion, it's always good to know history. History
It sure is.
informs you of reality.
Yes, sir.
Everybody. So we do thank and praise the Most High. Ahayah, bahashem, Yashayah, kudash. For this beautiful Sabbath and New Year's, we do ask him. And we do ask our viewers and subscribers to pass our ministry around to as many people as you can, so we can
whoever can donate also
more subscribers.
Yes, and if anybody out there is able to donate to us, we're not asking for much. Whatever you could afford a month, please send it, please.
So press that subscribe button and get this truth before it's too late.
That's right.
I want to talk about the American slavery system. There's just...
Is this part two, Joshua?
Part two.
Of last night. There's a continuation of
I found some more information, and this is actually going to be a series. This is probably going to be another... There's a lot of information that seems basic, but it's very deep. And it shows you that how this system has been passed on from father to son, from the government, and how it's still implemented. Many of you don't know this, and I'm going to find some information about this as well for tomorrow night. Police. The origin of police in America predominantly started in the South during slavery, and they were called paddy rollers because they would patrol for slaves. That's so
the word paddy wagon.
So slavery, policemen weren't really set up to patrol necessarily everybody. That's why if you look around today, police patrol heavily the same people they did during slavery. The origin, and that's why the police treat these people more fiercely and more aggressively, because they were set up to keep the slave in his position. Bring out some more information about that tonight. The origin of the police force was really set up in America to keep slaves on the plantation. So, what I want to go into tonight is some more information. Of course, I have a little slide presentation that I prepared. I want to share some of that information. I want to get into this. Go to Genesis 25.
Yeah, my eyes okay. We're better to see.
Genesis 25:21.
Okay. 25:21. Genesis 25:21. Okay. Everybody have it? Hello?
Yeah.
Okay.
Hold on.
Genesis
I'm not
25.
there yet.
Okay, Joshua's not there yet. 21. Just say all praise and you have it. Hello?
20.
Everybody say all praise and you have it.
Praises.
Okay, we'll say it loud. I want to hear it.
Praises.
No, not you. Huh?
Oh, praises.
Read.
And Isaac entreated the Most High for his wife because she was barren.
Uh-huh.
And the Most High was entreated of him.
Uh-huh.
And Rebekah, his wife, conceived. And the children struggled together within her. And she said, if it be so, why am I thus?
Uh-huh.
And she went to inquire of the Most High.
Mm-hmm.
And the Most High said unto her,
Mm-hmm.
2 nations,
To what?
2 nations.
So this is the first time and only time in history where 2 different races, as we would coin the term race of people, would proceed from one person. One single race couple would produce 2 separate race children. Read.
2 nations are in thy womb, and 2 manner of people shall be separated from thy bowels.
So these are 2 completely different people nature-wise. Read.
And the elder shall serve the younger,
And the what?
and the elder shall serve the younger.
So it was prophesied in the Bible that eventually Jacob would be Lord over Esau. And we know that eventually that will come to full fruition in the kingdom when Israel rules the earth.
That's
Read.
right. And when her days to be delivered were fulfilled,
Read.
behold, there were twins in her womb. And the first came out red, all over like a hairy garment.
So Esau was the first, what we would call red or white person, meaning he was born without melanin, to a sufficient melanin in his skin, or what we would call albino. He was born without sufficient melanin in his skin to turn him color. Read.
And they called his name Esau.
Read.
And after that came his brother out, and his hand took hold on Esau's heel, and his name was called Jacob.
Uh-huh.
And Isaac was 80 years old.
So we
When
notice
she came, when she
that
did
Jacob's description was Jacob's description was not given to us in the Bible, but Esau was, because Esau did not look like
It's still coming out very stuff.
his parents.
Right.
right?
Right, Josh.
Esau was a different person. Jacob looked like everybody else on the earth. Right?
That's right.
So go to Genesis 27.
Okay. And what, 25 or 27? What?
25.
Okay. Genesis 27. Next page over, 25.
27.
You sure 20 or 20? 21 or 20? 20,
27, 27.
27, 27. Okay.
So the context of this is Jacob is about to receive his father's blessing from Isaac. Read.
And he came near and kissed him,
Read.
and he smelled the smell of his raiment, and blessed him and said, see, The smell of my son is as the smell of a field which the Most High hath blessed.
Read.
Therefore, Ahayah, the Most High, gave thee of the dew of heaven and the fatness of the earth, and plenty of corn and wine.
Read.
Let people serve thee.
Let what?
Let people serve thee.
So God's plan originally for his people was that the earth would serve the children of Israel that would come out of Jacob. Israel was never supposed to be under nobody. Read.
And nations bow down to thee.
And what?
And nations bow down to thee.
Not you bow down to other people and serve them.
Come on.
But other people serve you. Read.
Be Most High, or be Lord over thy brethren.
And the you there is speaking about.
That's a leader, so we can use Lord in there. Yeah.
About the Negro. So the Negro was originally designed to rule the earth. Read.
And let thy mother's sons.
Be Lord, not submissive or servant. Be Lord over thy brethren. Who is your brother? Esau.
Come on. And let thy mother's sons bow down to you, to thee.
Verse 39.
39. Okay, let's go down to 39. 36, 37, 39, 38. Here we go. Ready? And Isaac, his father, answered and said unto him, Behold, thy dwelling shall be the fatness of the earth.
So again, the context of this is Esau comes in after Jacob got the blessing, and he's upset because
and watch what happens.
He wanted a blessing from his father as well as the firstborn. Read.
Okay. And the dew of heaven from above.
Read. And
by thy sword shalt thou live.
Isaac told Esau that he would have the fatness of the earth, but the difference is he would have to use force and warfare.
That's right. Murder. That's right.
Historically, what people as an elite have used warfare and force to get possession of the earth.
Come on. And shall serve thy brother.
So even Isaac told Esau that although you rule the earth, you're going to serve Israel eventually.
Right, eventually, that's right. And it shall come to pass when thou shalt have the dominion.
So when does Esau get the dominion? Under Greece, Rome, and Europe, America.
Come on, that's right. So
this plan against Israel has existed since Greece. Alexander the Great got control. So this agenda has been passed down from Alexander to the Romans to Europe, England to America.
Wow. That thou shalt break his yoke from off thy neck.
Read.
And Esau hated Jacob.
And who and what?
And Esau hated Jacob.
So because he was rejected, he said, now I will hate my brother. Read.
Because of the blessing wherewith his father blessed him.
So pretty much Esau is angry that he didn't get the blessing, and he still has that. So this grudge has lasted from the beginning of time.
And Esau said in his heart, the days of mourning for my father are at hand, the end. Then will I slay my brother Jacob. So
this plan of killing his brother has existed from the beginning.
We just read it. It's a prophecy that's going to last until the time of the Gentiles come to an end. It's real soon.
So,
amen. Awesome, brother.
One more before we go into the little thing here. Joel. Okay. Joel 3.
Joel 3. Good chapter. Good chapter. 3 what, Josh? Right. We wait for Josh.
Hosea.
3:1.
All right. Joel 3:1. So when we have it, just
All praise.
say all praises.
Joel 3:1. Read.
She's still looking.
Read. She got it.
For behold, in those days and in the captivity of
So
Judah
in
and Jerusalem.
in the last days, actually, when Christ returns, he will return his people to their land. He will bring again their captivity, or he'll end it. So Israel has not been in their land for 2,000 years.
I will also gather all nations and will bring them down into the valley of Jehoshaphat.
Read. This is Armageddon.
And will plead with them there for my people.
For who?
For my people.
Everybody.
For my people and for my heritage Israel, whom they have scattered among the nations, and parted my land.
So they enslaved Israel, scattered them all over the earth, and parted the land of Israel between them.
And they have cast lots for my people, again, my people, and have given a boy for a harlot. So
the slave masters would rape men.
And so the girl for wine.
So they wouldn't just rape women, they would rape men.
That they might drink.
Wow.
Yes, they that have ye to do with me, O Tyre and Zidon, and all the coasts.
Because Africans were complicit in the selling of Israel to Esau. Read.
Palestine, would ye render me a recompense, and if ye recompense me swiftly and speedily, will I return your recompense upon your own head, because ye have taken my silver and my gold, and have carried.
Now we know that in 70 AD they destroyed and stole everything out of Jerusalem. But what also is this talking about? The Israelites. So the Most High is comparing his people to the most precious stones, materials, silver and gold.
Into your temples, my goodly.
So you carried my people into your religions. Read.
Things. Go ahead.
Because ye have taken my silver and my gold, and have carried into your temples my goodly pleasant things. The children also of Judah and the children of Jerusalem have ye sold unto the Grecians.
Who are the Grecians? The Grecians are the white, so-called white man. Read.
That ye might remove them far from their border.
Stop.
Wow. I'll read tonight. I can read tonight.
We see that the Most High used these people as a tool to enslave his people.
Wow.
So we talked about
how many centuries, Josh? You understand why they can't come out, Tony? When they don't understand that social engineering, that brainwashing for centuries.
So we explained. So the difference between the difference, brothers and sisters, between this slavery that happened in America and the slavery that took place
wow, from slave to Jim Crow, that's a great choice.
So I want to share. So before I start reading this, the difference between slavery and you can find this information on Wikipedia as well. Okay, so the difference between slavery here in America and ancient slavery is slavery in the ancient world was never based on skin color. It was based on being a prisoner of war or being an indentured servant. And how does this requite to today? How does this relate? Okay, so what is chattel slavery? Chattel slavery, also called traditional slavery, is so. Wait, hold on.
It's on.
Chattel slavery, also called traditional slavery, is also named because people are treated as the chattel, or as animals, personal property of the owner, and are brought and sold as commodities.
Mm-hmm.
So that's deep because so basically we know that happened here in America. They were sold off, they were dehumanized, they were given a different religion. But how does this transfer to today? How is this system recreated itself? Right? The system has recreated itself in sports. What are athletes? They are commodities, and they are sold.
Come on.
It's the same slave mentality.
Just a different format, that's all.
I'll read that again. They are personal property of the owner. So an athlete is a personal commodity of the person who drafts them or buys them from a slave auction. So all these sports programs or drafts are no more than the modern reconstruction of a slave auction. The only difference is that white people are involved in it. Some white people here and there. And that's how they hide it.
That's right.
Because there was no white people being sold on auction blocks in the 16th century. It was all the Israelites.
Now they're being sold, but it's just a different format. But there's not many. If you look closely at sports, it's mostly older tribes that are in sports.
Typically, under the chattel slave system, slave status was imposed on children of the enslaved at birth. So that's another difference. Even in ancient Egypt, the original slavery of the Israelites didn't start out as slaves. They were eventually enslaved by the Pharaoh, right? So they were not chattel. So they weren't. In other words, the Egyptians didn't try to mess with their knowledge of self. All they did was make them serve them. See, that's another difference. The difference, again, with slavery here in America is that the slave masters stole or removed the knowledge of the slave, the slaves from themselves. So they had no knowledge of self, except from being here in America. Let me say that again. So they had no knowledge. That's why people today, unless you understand this, so-called African Americans don't know who they are. They only know what they are here.
Right.
Because that slave mentality
It's been hidden from them.
Of being a chattel was not only a physical slavery, but the slave master recreated them completely into a whole nother creation.
That's right. Wow. There's a lot of people waking up now, Tony.
Although it dominated many different societies through human history, the form of chattel slavery formally abolished. Well, it's not abolished. See, that's another lie. Slavery is not abolished. They just reconstructed it. That was what Reconstruction for the government was about. Recreating slavery and remarketing it, or finding another way to remarket it, to make it profitable for people to take part in. Right? Slavery in the United States was legal, was the legal institution of human chattel slavery, enslavement. That's another difference. Mostly in the ancient world, you were an indentured servant. In other words, you served for usually 6 or 7 years, then they freed you. Even in America before this, the Irish and the Europeans that came here and worked originally for the the Jewish people were freed. But eventually they figured out they couldn't make money off of freeing people. So they went to Africa, to a certain part, mainly Nigeria, Nigeria, the Gambia, the Cameroon, and certain areas on the west coast of Africa, where a place called Negro Land was, which does not appear on maps today, because they had to remove that. And also there was a place in Africa called the Kingdom of Judah, or Ouida, because they knew that they were stealing Israelites, the real Israelites, the Jewish people. So primarily of African and African Americans that existed in the United States of America in the 18th and 19th century. Slavery had been practiced in British America for only from early colonial days, and was legal in all 13 colonies. So legally, if the United States government decided to return black people to chattel slavery, they could do it. It's because they never really fully abolished or took it out. They just recreated it. So tomorrow, if they wanted to put you back on a plantation, and force you to cook and pick cotton, peas, sugar cane, and whatever else, they could do that, because you are still their property in their mind. Okay, for only times of the Declaration of Independence in 1776, it listed that about half of the states until 1865, when it was prohibited by the 13th Amendment, which the 13th Amendment never ended slavery.
Come on.
By the time the Revolution, 1775 to 1783, the states of slavery had been institutionalized. So what does institutionalized mean?
Okay.
That means that it had been organized as a system whereby America needed to exist.
Wow.
They made it law where it was legal to chattel, to make a person the state of an animal as a racial caste associated with African ancestry. And when the United States Constitution was ratified, a relatively small number of people of color were among the voting citizen. Male property owners during and immediately following the Revolutionary War established laws were passed in the northern state, or abolitionist laws were passed in the northern states that moved the development to abolish slavery. Northern states, well, that's a lie, because Black people in the North were still treated the same as in the South.
Come on.
It doesn't matter where you are in America. If you are from that stock, you are still considered property. Northern states depended on free labor. So slavery was still existing, and so they weren't trying to abolish slavery. They just wanted black people to work for free, but not as slaves, just work for free. The rapid expansion of the cotton industry in the Deep South
It's a good lesson last night too.
okay. So
glad there's a continuation. It's going to click to it.
So here is the 13th Amendment, and I want
to listen close now. It has nothing to do with slavery ending. It's just a different format, and people can't see it today because it's hidden in their agenda.
So the 13th Amendment, here's what the 13th Amendment says. it says neither slavery nor involuntary servitude except as a punishment for a crime whereof the party have been duly convicted shall exist within the United States or any place subject to their jurisdiction. So what does this mean? This means that if you are convicted of a crime and arrested by the police, you are legally a slave again.
Wow.
You're still a slave.
Wow, you hear that? Okay.
So
wait, hold on, wait. So doesn't this, Josh? Let me say something. Doesn't this tie into the black people being killed in America, Josh? That's not an accident. You know, that's planned. And you know, folks, please, if you're listening to us on a daily basis, wake up.
Doesn't it tie into that to today to the jail system?
Yeah, yes, it does.
So that's why there is much more black people being arrested and imprisoned than anyone else.
And you know, right now,
because the jail system, the prison system wasn't really set up for everybody to be in jail.
That's right. Wow.
It was set up for the Israelites.
Some of you right now might be saying, well, how does this confide in me? I mean, you know, this is so many centuries later. Nothing has changed, brother. Nothing has changed. We just showed you. Nothing's going to change. These pastors are lying to you in your churches, telling you there's a better day coming. There's no better day coming. I just witnessed to a family in Denny's yesterday, and they really received. This is the first family that really listened when you're speaking to them.
So, Section 2, Congress shall have power to enforce this article by appropriate
legislation.
Appropriate legislation.
That's right. I can see that.
So what does this mean?
My eyes better.
That if the U.S. Congress wanted to reinstitute chattel slavery and do away with the 13th Amendment, let me say this again. What does this mean? The U.S., the circuit courts, the judges, the Supreme Court, the Senate, and everyone, if they wanted to destroy or take out the 13th Amendment, they have the legal right to put you back on a plantation.
Wow. And they had the, wow.
They'll use the police to do it too.
And guess what? At any time, at any day, any night, the government can turn your electric off, whether you paid your bill or not. It doesn't matter.
Okay. The slave
That's
codes.
how close we are, Josh, to the end.
Slave codes were concerned with the rights and duties of free people as it regards to enslaved. Slave codes were left the great deal unsaid, with much of the actual practice of slavery being a matter of tradition rather than formal law.
Wow.
The primary colonial power all had singly different slave codes. The French
right.
Okay, so
wow. That's all right, brother. That's all right. It's a good information, brother. It's some good information.
Specifically for the purpose that this okay, hold on. The slave societies of the Americas, the English colonies, largely had their local slave codes mostly based on the code of either the Barbados or Virginia. Okay, so these are, and I'm going to read some of these slave codes. Movement restrictions. Most regions required any slave away from their plantations as or outside of the city. They resided in to have a pass signed by their master. List of code here. Many cities in the slave states required slave tags, small copper badges. So where do you think ID cards originated?
Wow.
White people, that didn't in America. ID and identification was ID cards like social security numbers and
just
ID
a card
cards
for you, your age, right? And just something
that originated with slaves.
Wow.
So if they give you a social security number, that is a sign of ownership. They own the people. Whether now they moved it to everybody. Everybody who is born with a birth certificate or a license, they own your rights.
Wow.
You are property. Now they just put that on everybody. Originally, that was only restricted to the Israelites. Now they want to own everybody that lives here.
Wow.
Everyone understand?
Yeah, how true.
Marriage restriction. Most places restricted the marriage rights of enslaved people. Us to prevent them them from trying to change masters by marrying to a family one another. Plantation marriage between people of different races was usually restricted. So they didn't allow mainly black men to marry white women because they were raping black women. And usually the slave would have to have permission from the state or the owner to marry. Where do you think marriage licenses came from? Marriage licenses were instituted during slavery.
Wow, that's right.
Basically,
Damn
that
right,
was
that's-
a right given by permission, and usually the slave owner had to give or buy that woman or give him the right to marry her. Wow. So marriage certificates or rights, a right from a state official to marry originated in slavery.
Wow.
So that's where you get going to a church and having a state official marry you.
Wow. Wow. And Josh, wasn't
prohibitions on gatherings.
That's what I was going to say.
Slave codes generally prevented large groups of enslaved people from gathering in any form there and away from their plantation. So that's why they're even in workplace, you know, it's a law for more than a couple black people to hang out at work, like 2 or 3 at a time. That's still a law that they are afraid of. They don't want black people coming together. Except it's under a controlled system like the church. Slave patrols or police. Slave department patrol portion. Wait. Slave department portions of North America were degree of legal authority of North America, varying degrees of legal authority. Backed patrols by plantation owners and by their rights to ensure that enslaved people were not free to move about at night or to escape from the plantation.
Stop for 1 second. Now, isn't that true today? Look, they're singled out when they're driving at night by themselves.
Exactly.
Aren't they afraid? I've spoken to so many Afro-Americans that don't know their Hebrews, and they've told me. I went out to the store, a doctor the other night at the hospital on Hunt 3rd here, the emergency, and I got pulled over. And they were questioning me for no reason. I said, they're going to do that. That's what we just read to you.
So slave patrols or police were originated to control the Israelite population, to keep them in place. That is why the police harass black people more than whites.
Wow.
So the police wasn't even set up to police everybody.
That's right. A police state actually means
to control
tribes. That's right.
Israelites.
And you might think that's far-fetched, but it's true, and you should know that. Some of you that are listening should know this already. Why do you have a little fear in you when you see a policeman? You should. You should.
Punishment.
Not that you do anything wrong.
Killing.
I tell you, you should.
Slave codes regulated how slaves could be punished for going too far, as it applied no partial for no penalty for accidentally killing a slave. So basically,
you hear that, Mary?
You could kill a black person and get away with it. Isn't that what happens with the police? They can shoot an innocent black child and get acquitted.
And look at your country the last 20 years. What's been going on? Your children have been killed by them. And the police, most of the police are getting away with it.
While punishing them, later laws began to apply education restrictions. Slave code, some codes made teaching slaves to read illegal. Hold on, brothers and sisters, let me get that back. So the main thing they were afraid of was you being able to read the Bible. The Bible, right? They didn't want you to read the Bible. So now I'm about to share some information about how the church had a role in slavery. Okay.
Come on. Wow, that's good.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. They're behind the mark of the beast too, Tony. The church is pushing it. Oh yeah.
Prior to the American Revolution, masters and revivalists spread Christianity to slave communities. So the master or the owner and the state religion of Christianity have always worked together to control the Israelites. The church system was not given to you here in America, Israelite, to get you closer to God. It was set up by the slave master and the state to keep you controlled and make you a better docile servant. Communities supported by societies of the propagation of the gospel in the First Great Awakening.
Wow.
The First Great Awakening.
Wow.
Awakening of what?
Yeah, come on.
In the mid-18th century.
You see what I got that?
British and Baptist. Where is Baptist in the Bible?
Yeah,
and Methodist.
Yeah, come on.
Baptist and Methodist from New England.
New England.
Preached a message against slavery, encouraging masters to free their slaves. So regardless of what they were encouraging them to do, the effect on the slave was they learned that wait.
Come on.
Both slaves and free blacks, and gave them active roles in new congregations. So in other words,
that's how they drew them in.
So in other words, the slave master and the preachers, the white preachers would select certain black slaves who they could teach how not to read the Bible, to preach to the slave.
Wow.
That's where the origin of the black preacher comes from.
Wow. And you know that's so true. I've spoken.
The first independent black congregation was started in the South before the Revolution, South Carolina and Georgia. Over the decades, and with the growth of slavery together in the South, Baptist and Methodist ministers of what? Gradually changed their messages to accommodate the institution. After the 1830s, white Southerners urged the capability of Christianity and slavery, while with the multitude of both Old and New Testament situations. So they started to use the Bible to justify them enslaving the Israelites. Like slaves obey your masters, and different.
Oh yeah, oh yeah.
So they started to use the Bible to create a doctrine to make you accept being. Now, of course, we know there were plenty of slave rebellions.
Acceptance, right?
But the majority,
they feel accepted in their church.
They pronounce Christianity. The slave owners promoted Christianity as encouraging. Wow. So they taught slave preachers to teach spiritually and like emotional messages to keep the slaves
unlearned,
happy.
That's right, and docile. Because you don't learn nothing in those churches with these preachers yelling and screaming.
As as better. They promoted Christianity as better treatment of slaves, and urged for watch this. Southern slaves, in other words, slaves, Israelites here in the South, generally attended their masters' white churches. Wait a minute. So you are telling me that the slave had to attend church with the master. Had to. They had no option. So the slave had no option but to be Christian, or to be forcibly converted into the Christian religion.
Wow. How true. How true.
Let me read that.
Yeah.
Southern slaves. So the Israelites who lived here were enslaved here in the South, generally attended the church, their masters' white churches. So they were being taught white Jesus. What were they being taught?
Mm-hmm.
Obey the white man.
Mm-hmm. Come on.
Serve white God.
White supremacy Jesus. That's right.
So the church system was purposely used as a weapon to condition the majority of the Israelites to accept their position as less than.
Let me say this real quick, Josh. Tomorrow morning, if any of you go to a Sunday church where there's no such thing as a Sunday Sabbath, you are committing idolatry in front of the Most High. And he hates idolatry. Anybody who serves that white Christ that was made up by the Pope, go to YouTube, get the Apocrypha, and read Wisdom of Solomon, chapter 14.
Southern slaves generally attended their white masters' churches. So how did you become Methodist, Baptist, Lutherans,
Gave an open door, didn't they, Josh?
Presbyterians?
Mm-hmm.
Because your former slave owners were part of those denominations. So that's how you associated with that.
Wow.
By force. They made you attend, and if you did not, they would kill you.
Wow.
Because you rejected, and which is contradictory to the Bible, because Christ said, spread my word peacefully, not by force.
That's right.
Or not by constraint. In other words, making somebody do what you're doing.
That's right. That's right.
I want to, before we close, I want to read. I want to watch this. So, where the other where often outraged the white congregants, they were usually permitted to sit only in the back or in the ballery,
the balcony.
the balcony. They listened to white pastors who
brainwashed them,
emphasized the children of slaves, the obligation of slaves to keep in their place. So the church was set up to keep slaves or Israelites, not knowing who they are, and in their place of what? Of servitude. Let me read that again. Hold on. Everyone listening? This is real time, brothers. This is
This goes for today too.
They listen to white pastors who
yeah.
emphasize
More than ever.
the obligation of a slave to keep in their place.
Wow.
So
That's why they give them a position, right, Josh?
to keep them in
Their
place.
Wow. So they're not doing you really any spiritual favor, pal. I'll tell you right now. What they're doing is
And actually insulting you.
You really, it is. That's
And
degrading.
acknowledge the slave's identity as both person and property.
Wow, wow.
So you're not a person, you're part of the land.
The institution of slavery. Yep.
Uh-huh. Preachers taught that master's responsibility and the concept of appropriate patient treatment using Christianity to improve condition to improve the conditions of slaves. In other words, they used Christianity to reinforce that it was righteous to be a servant.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
And that to treat them justly and fairly. Colossians 4:1. This
That's okay.
included masters having self-control and not disrespecting under anger, threatening, and which we know they didn't keep or do, because they would routinely beat slaves and rape slave women. So they didn't even follow the laws they told the slaves to follow.
They didn't have to.
Slaves were granted their own religious observations, meetings alone without the supervision of white masters or ministers. The large plantations with groups of slaves nourishing 20 or more one.
What's one more to the kettle, right, Tony? They were all brainwashed, so they kept them docile and brainwashed.
These congregations revolved around a singular preacher, often illiterate, with limited knowledge of the Bible.
Wow, that's so true.
So that's a slave preacher right there.
Marshall. That's the Marshall, Josh.
Hold on, brothers and sisters. That's
Boy, that is so true, man. Are you getting some truth today?
these congregations. So this is the origin of the black church. These congregations revolved around a singular preacher, often illiterate, with limited knowledge of the Bible. So basically, this person was taught by the slave master to only teach slaves to be submissive, obedient, and happy.
Wow. So in other words, slaves obey your masters in all things. Paul said that. That's not what Paul meant. The slaves were treated good.
Who was marked by his personal pity and ability to foster a spiritual environment.
Wow.
So in other words, you had to keep these slaves happy and like emotional, right? Stir their feelings up.
So Josh, when Paul said that, he was talking to some people he was encouraging because they were on their own, right?
Watch this. So spiritual encouragement, right?
Right. Good.
So what does that mean? So teach the slave preacher to only teach the slave the spiritual things of the Bible.
And not the real physical.
Being like being saved, and
right.
Although don't tell them what being saved really is about.
Right.
Certain stories about David and Goliath.
Yeah.
Wow. And things like that.
I got you. I know what you're saying.
So only teach them things that will make them happy.
Yeah. Jump around like jumping beats. That's right. And where do you learn, Tony? Where do you
African Americans developed a theology related to biblical stories having the more meaning for them, including hope for deliverance from slavery by their own exodus. So a lot of these slaves still knew, and they would privately come together and read the Bible. So they weren't solely being controlled by the system like they are today.
Wow.
So they would go in private and read the Exodus, and they knew who they were a lot. It took time to completely erase the knowledge of themselves out of their mind.
Yes, that's right. That's right.
So a lot of times these slaves were reading the Bible still with the knowledge of who they were.
So they made them really social engineering. That's what they did.
So watch this. So including hope of deliverance from slavery by their own exodus.
Wow.
One learning.
Where are you? Oh, yeah. Okay.
One lasting influence of the secret congregations of is the African American spiritual.
Wow.
So if you like,
wow.
For example,
what brainwashing.
Down by the river.
Yeah. They're talking about America, that song, Mary. For the Psalms. Wow.
Watch this. I'll show you this.
Yeah, show Josh me some pictures of you.
Yeah, but listen. You're gonna teach about Lincoln tomorrow?
Yeah, Monday probably. We got to work tomorrow.
Listen to this, brothers and sisters. Now listen to the words of this song I'm about to play. If it will play.
Wading in the water, wading in the water, wading in the water, wading in the water.
Now listen to the words of this song.
See that band on destiny.
Wow. See, now this is something embedded in them. See? That was their real, identity. Well, not really, right? I mean, part of it, Josh, right? But not all of it. But they came up with these songs after their brute mind was destroyed. But some kind of remembrance, right, Josh, of the past. It's not going to stay on.
See that band on destiny white. That is like trouble.
Go to something now, Mike. I keep playing. Maybe it's time we get a better tower, man. You know? Get that light over here.
Hold on, brothers and sisters.
Not funny.
Don't waste time. We'll talk to us. No. If you can explain what what the songs really mean and what they were singing about. You can read the scripture in the Psalms. I mean, it's plain as day. When they came in, they did the same thing, man. They sang down by the willows, right, Tony? Yeah. Hung their harps on the willows and cried. The willows in near riverbanks, right?
Yeah.
Hold on, folks. Don't wait too long before it goes on. Leave it, John. Go to Psalms. I know the scripture you want to speak on. Okay, we're just searching for a song that you could hear. Tell what you want to say.
Wade in the water, wade in the water, children, wade in the water. God's gonna trouble the water. Who are those children all dressed in red? God's gonna trouble the water.
This is a song that they came when they came to America, right?
No, I think this while they were slaves.
Yeah, when they came to America, I said. No.
Yeah.
Come on, Joshua. It's no good if you be quiet too long. You're listening. What do you want to say about the song?
And if it will play,
It won't play the whole song. It's probably on reception what it is, right, Tony? Leave it. Come on, Justin. Let me go turn it up. Go up there, listen. Go to Psalm, Justin. I know you want to explain it, yeah.
Waiting in the water, waiting in the water.
Waiting in the water, waiting in the water, children. Waiting in the water, God is going to trouble the water. Waiting in the water, waiting in the water, children. Waiting in the water, God is going to trouble the water. See that band all dressed in white. God is going to trouble the water. It looked like a band of the Israelites.
All right.
wait a minute.
Wow. What did he say? Wow.
Let me play that.
Wow.
So they see
They knew
when they
Christ.
were singing these songs on the plantation, the slaves, they knew they were singing about their ancestors.
Wow.
These are the, if you read Psalms 137, I want to read that before we close. Psalms 137. Now listen to the words. Don't
Yeah,
so
go
much
ahead.
listen to the rhythm. Listen to what the slaves knew.
Wow. That's awesome, Josh.
And this is why they don't sing these songs in church anymore.
Wow. 137? Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Now that tells you that Christ was Hebrew Israelite,
So
not a Christian.
what is this song really messaging? That they're supposed to wait for God to deliver them out of America.
Wow.
And they're the Israelites.
Awesome.
Listen to the words.
See that band all dressed in red. God is going to trouble the water. Look like a band that Moses led.
Wow.
God is going to trouble the water.
Listen to that again.
See that band all dressed in red. God is going to trouble the water.
Oh, that's why they don't
Look like a band that Moses led.
All
The
right.
Exodus.
Yeah.
Stop.
Wow.
So they were singing songs about them being delivered from the oppressor. That's why you don't hear songs rarely hear songs like this in black churches anymore.
So they give you all this. Who's those forefathers? They
Watch this.
Yeah. Wow. Listen to those ridiculous songs.
My Lord, deliver Daniel, 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 my Lord, deliver Daniel. Why not every man?
What he said?
My Lord,
What he said?
deliver Daniel,
Deliver Daniel.
Daniel.
Didn't the Lord deliver Daniel? So now they're singing about
Wow.
the lions then. And God delivering Daniel from the lions.
Wow.
Who are the lions? The oppressor. Who is Daniel?
But Josh, at
The
the time,
Negroes.
did they know?
Exactly.
Did they know who they were? Really?
Of course.
Wow.
They were singing about themselves.
Wow. That's
Being
awesome.
delivered from slavery.
Wow. So there was people in the slave camps that knew who they were. Wow. So these few came out and started really churches then. They kept the law, right? Kept the Sabbath. That's in the Hebrews to Negroes story.
And went down to the river, and went down to the river, Lord.
why you don't hear them, Josh. That's why you don't hear the song.
Went down there for the praise, and went down to the river, and went down to the river, Lord, and went down to the river, wash his sins away. Washed all day, washed all night, washed till his head was sore. Washed all day, washed all night, till he could.
Now they're singing about John the Baptist baptizing Israelites, washing their sins away.
Wow.
Wash no more. Hey, and went down to the river, and went down to the river, Lord. And went down to the river, went down there for the praise. And went down to the river, and went down to the river, Lord. And went down to the river, wash his sins away. Way in the water, way in the water, children. Way in the water, God's gonna trouble the water. Way in the water.
So we hear that, brothers and sisters. So these slaves understood what they were singing about, because they would read the Bible for themselves a lot of times, outside of the control of the master and the slave preacher. And they would know who they knew. A lot of these people still knew who they were. So when they were singing these songs, one more. One more, then we'll read Psalm 137.
And we'll close with that.
Uh-huh.
Wow, so that's why they keep those songs out of the church. Because they sing about the Israelites, the black Hebrews. It's not just black, it's the covenant they made. Sure, you got white people in those churches, they don't want to hear that sometimes.
Swing low, sweet chariot, coming forth to carry me home. Swing low, sweet chariot, coming forth.
What are they singing about?
Wow.
The chariots. They're singing about the chariots that are going to come and get them.
Wow.
So these slaves, when they were originally singing these songs, they had understanding about who they were. So it took a long time to take that knowledge away. So these were coded songs about Israelite, about them being saved from Esau, from slavery.
Carry me home. Swing low, sweet chariot, coming forth to carry me home. Swing low,
Look at the identity of the Israelites. Look at this, Mary.
coming forth to carry me.
And they're ashamed of this, the Christians, when they see this. Shame on you, Christians. That's how you're supposed to look in church. No, with your bra sticking out. And you dress up these kazoots. And your crotch and your butt.
Shut up.
Sorry. I had to put that in there. Sorry.
Coming forth to carry me home. Bands of angels coming after me.
That's awesome. That's awesome.
So they understood the angels were coming to get them.
I'm just
Coming forth to carry me home. Sweet Lord. sweet Ahayah, coming forth to carry me home. If you can prepare me for I do, coming forth to carry me home. Tell all my friends I'm not coming to, coming forth to carry me home. Why don't you swing down, cherry something, let me ride. Swing down, cherry something, let me ride. Oh, let me go, let me go. Oh, let me go.
Okay, that excited me, yeah? That's all. That's all it is. It's all the same. Look at the colors, the beautiful colors, yeah.
So these songs.
Oh, awesome. Awesome. That's awesome, Josh. I'm blessed the way they dressed. I'm telling you.
Well, I want, hold on, what is that? Hold on.
A band of angels coming after me, coming forth to carry me.
So the slaves understood that these angels spoken of in the Bible were coming for them.
Wow.
To save them from slavery, from their oppressor. See, that's why you don't hear these songs. You rarely hear these songs in churches. Even in old churches, you rarely hear them, because they don't want you singing about freedom.
Mm-hmm.
Psalms 137. Psalms 137.
137.
All right, Mary?
They don't go to one.
Psalms 137, the first verse. The morning of the exile in Babylon. This is America too. Go ahead, Mary. By the rivers of Babylon, there we sat down. Yea, we wept when we remembered Zion.
So we wept when we remembered. They wept when they remembered their home, their real home.
That's right.
America is not your home, Negro.
We hanged our harps upon the willows.
Why do you think they call these weeping willows?
Wow.
Read.
We hanged our harps upon the willows in the midst thereof. For there they that carry us away captive required of us a song.
For they that carried us away captive required of us a what?
A song.
So these songs that we were hearing when they were singing them literally on the plantation, these were coded messages of God coming to grab them and save them out of the hand of their slave owner.
Wow. And they that wasted us required of us myrrh, saying, music, sing us one of the songs of Zion.
So stop. We hear that, brothers and sisters?
I was impressed the way they were dressed, Josh. I really was. That's the way you're supposed to look. That's how you got to look. And I'm sorry to Christian, I got to say, they're far from that. Many are dressing good, but many are not. Code means a lot, dress code, Tony.
So we understand, brothers and sisters, there were hidden messages in these songs, like in the one we just listened to, Sweet Low, Sweet Chariot. One of the lyrics was, there's angels coming to get us. So the slaves were singing these songs, and they were singing about the chariots or the end times. They were singing about prophecy and the fulfillment of that prophecy, which was the angels coming to gather them.
That's right.
And they were ultimately singing about their kingdom coming.
Awesome. Awesome.
So that's why it's a whole new church system now. You don't hear these spiritual songs anymore. Why? Because they don't want you singing about freedom from them. That's why you hear that's why you hear songs that they gave you to sing.
Mm-hmm.
Because the songs they gave you to sing aren't about you being free from them.
Exactly.
Like Amazing Race. Although
right.
Amazing Race, John Newton wrote that song because he heard Israelites humming a spiritual, and he stole that spiritual from them and turned it into Amazing Race. So the so-called anthem of the Christian religion would not exist unless there were slaves in the belly of a ship coming here to America, and a slave master stole that from them. So Amazing Grace belongs to the slaves.
Awesome.
So with that, we say shalom.
Shalom.